Chapter 2884. Fingzhou smiled when he saw the two of them and said, I want to ask, where is this place? If we want to leave, which direction should we go? The childlike supremacy widened his eyes when he heard that. Leave? You want to leave? If you're already here, just stay. Why are you leaving? That's right. Just stay and become my disciple. You can choose any cave abode you want to stay in, the beautiful woman said. When Xianyuanmo saw this, he said, we can talk about leaving or staying later. Right now, it's not suitable for us to stay on this stage. If we continue to talk, the competition on this stage will not be able to continue. The two of them regained their senses when they heard this. That's right. The competition is still going on. They turned around and saw the four sect leaders looking in their direction. They smiled and said, that's true. Come, follow us. Don't stand on this stage and disturb their competition. Let me introduce you. As they spoke, they gestured for Xianyuanmo and Fingzhou to follow them to their seats on the stage. They then said to the two cultivators who were still standing on the stage, continue. The two cultivators smiled bitterly. A good competition had been interrupted, and now they were asked to continue. Why did it feel like everyone's attention was no longer on them? How could they continue? On the other side, the two of them led Xianyuanmo and Fingzhou to the stage where more than 10 people were seated. They smiled at Xianyuanmo and Fingzhou and said, these are the sect leaders of the four major immortal sects, the four immortal dukes. You're lucky to have come at the right time. For immortal dukes who usually don't show their faces are all here. Greetings, immortal dukes. Fingzhou bowed and sized up the four of them. Xianyuanmo nodded slightly, but didn't salute. When they saw the two of them, more than 10 people's eyes flickered. A strange look flashed across their eyes. From the moment they appeared, they had been sizing them up. With their cultivations, they could naturally tell that the young man in red was actually a woman. Moreover, the two people in front of them were extremely young, but their strength was already comparable to the teachers of the Celestial Gate. This red-clothed woman called Fingzhou bowed to them, but there was not much respect in her eyes or in her actions. It was as if to her, bowing to them was just a form of etiquette, and not the etiquette of a junior taking a senior as a disciple. The black-robed man was cold and arrogant. One look and one could tell that he had been in a high position for a long time. When he saw them, he only looked at them and nodded slightly. Obviously, he was a venerable who had been in a high position for a long time. He would not lower himself to do anything condescending. With their strength, cultivation, and age, they were definitely able to accept his bow. However, the arrogance of young people still made the four immortal dukes smile. The four of them did not take the disrespect of the two of them seriously. However, the venerables of the four sects who were sitting at the side were somewhat dissatisfied. Especially when they saw the four of them fighting over the two of them, they wanted to know what was so special about the two of them. This is Fingzhou, this is. The child-faced venerable looked at Xianyuanmo and asked, what's your name? Xianyuanmo. He reported his name. Oh, Xianyuanmo. He nodded and said to the four immortal dukes, this is Xianyuanmo. These two are not bad. What do you think? Chapter 2885. To be praised by four immortal monarchs and fought over by four venerables, I really want to know what abilities these two have to be able to receive such high praise. I think the disciples of the four sects below the stage have the same thoughts as me, right? The man who looked to be in his 30s stood up with his hands clasped behind his back. His voice was neither loud nor soft, but because it contained a powerful aura of spiritual energy, it clearly spread to the surroundings, allowing the disciples of the four sects to hear his words clearly. That's right. We really want to see what's so special about these two cultivators from the lower realm. That's right. Their appearance has disrupted our competition. Since that's the case, why don't we challenge them and see what abilities they have? That's right. Let's see what abilities they have. That's right. I also have the same thoughts as the venerables. Voices of different pitches came from below, and the voices grew louder and louder. Each voice carried a powerful aura of spiritual energy, causing the air and the sky to tremble slightly. Xianyuan Mose and Fingzhou narrowed their eyes and felt the changes in the aura in the air. They couldn't help but think to themselves, this is the pressure formed by the convergence of so many powerhouses. It's a pressure that can affect the air. Seeing this scene, the corners of the venerable's lips curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. As for the child-faced venerables, the beautiful venerables, and the other two people, when they saw this scene, they frowned slightly, feeling that this was a bit inappropriate. Fengzhou raised his eyebrows at this scene, and said to Xianyuan Mose beside him, "Why do I feel like these people want to bully us?" Xianyuan Mose reached out and put his arm around her shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, I'm here." His deep black eyes were like two cold rays of light as they shot towards the man who started this matter. The venerables looked towards Xianyuan Mose, but unexpectedly met his icy gaze. In that instant, his entire body couldn't help but shiver, and he couldn't help but take a step back. After realizing this, he glared at Xianyuan Mose with some embarrassment and anger. He walked up to him and said, "Xianyuan Mose, do you dare to accept my disciple's challenge?" Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and asked, "Why should we accept your challenge?" That's right, that's right. Just ignore him." The child-faced venerable one continued, "Let's go. I'll bring you guys to rest. We'll talk about the rest later." "Wait!" The venerable one shouted in a deep voice as he stood in front of Fengzhou and Xianyuan Mose. He glanced at the two of them before he looked at the venerable one with a child's face and said, "Venerable Lingmu, they've disrupted the competition of the 4 sections. It doesn't seem right to let them off just like that, right?" Xianyuan Mose glanced at that person and said in a deep and cold voice, "Since you want to compete, why don't you be my opponent?" As soon as he said this, the surrounding people were in an uproar and gasped. They only felt that Xianyuan Mose was too arrogant. That was a venerable one of the sects, not a disciple. How weak could a venerable one be? He actually wanted that venerable one to be his opponent. Was he not courting death? Chapter 2886. You're courting death. The honorable one's face darkened when he heard that. He was a dignified honorable one, and even if he won, it would not be honorable. However, this Xianyuan Mose dared to call himself a lord in front of him and even dared to challenge him. How presumptuous! Since you don't dare, then get lost. Xianyuan Mose flicked his sleeve, and a wave of pressure that could be seen with the naked eye rolled out. It caught the honorable one off guard and pushed him back a few meters. Seeing this, the crowd below could not help but widen their eyes and exclaim, "No way!" The honorable one flew into a rage out of humiliation. He glared at Xianyuan Mose with red eyes, "Since you're courting death, I'll grant you your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed forward. His powerful spiritual aura surged, forming a sharp airflow that followed his movements and attacked Xianyuan Mose. "Wait at the side." Xianyuan Mose reached out his hand and sent Fengzhou to a safe place. With a flick of his black robe, he blocked the airflow that was attacking him. At the same time, his spiritual aura and pressure also surged out from his body. He used his hand as a palm and his spiritual power as a sword. His black figure flashed like a ghost. When he avoided the honorable one's attack, he also changed from defense to offense. Every move was sharp and fierce. The honorable one's strength was also at the heavenly god realm. After the exchange of blows, he realized that Xianyuan Mose's strength was very strong. At that moment, he used 100% of his strength to deal with him. Every move he made was a sure kill move, and there was no room for mercy. Fengzhou watched from the side. Her clear eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light flashed across her eyes. She looked calm, but the murderous intent in her heart surged. When the four honorable ones at the side saw this, they could not help but feel anxious. No matter who was injured, it would not be easy to deal with them. If the honorable one was injured, based on his temperament, there would be no end to it. If Xianyuan Mose was injured, the two of them would probably not be willing to stay in the sect. They just couldn't understand how things had suddenly turned out this way. Immediately, they went to where the four immortal dukes were. Immortal dukes, it's not good to continue like this, right? What if someone is injured? Hee, it's alright. It's inevitable that someone will be injured in a spar. They'll stop. One of them stroked his beard and said with a smile, and even if we really can't hold back, us old guys will still make a move. It's a good opportunity to see the strength of these two people. It's very rare. Hearing these words, the few people knew that they would not let the two people stop. They could only wait anxiously at the side. The Honorable One, and the Immortal Dukes, and the Honorable One, they'll Xianyuan Moses. Xianyuan Mose. A few dukes, the Honorable One, dukes S's, dukes. Fengjiu played with the hair that fell in front of her chest. Her gaze fell on Xianyuan Mose in front of her. She slowly said, I'm not worried. She was not worried because she knew that the Honorable One's strength was not Moses' match. However, this person wanted to take Moses' life with every move. His vicious and bloodthirsty attacks displeased her. Hence, she had already thought it through. As long as he dared to hurt her Mose, she would definitely make him understand that he could not hurt anyone. When the two Honorable Ones heard Fengjiu's words and looked at her expression, they felt that it was a little strange. However, they could not pinpoint what was strange. However, seeing that she was still calm, they did not say anything. Instead, they continued to watch the battle in front of them. Chapter 2887. Looking at the scene in front of them, they couldn't help but widen their eyes in astonishment. That chi blade came from Xianyuan Mose's hand and slashed across the Supremacy's face. That slash left a deep gash on his face and fresh blood spurted out, making his entire face look somewhat ferocious. That Supremacy seemed to be in disbelief and stopped for a moment. He raised his hand to touch his wounded cheek. The pain on his cheek and the blood on his hand made him want to kill someone. Xianyuan Mose. I'd like to see how you're going to die. His voice was gloomy, and a murderous aura surged out from his body. It was expressed in his voice, his eyes, and his actions. A bright and sharp blade appeared in his hand. He held it in a reverse grip, gritted his teeth, and changed his pace and figure to attack. The reverse grip of the blade in his hand drew out several blade shadows in an instant. His attack was mixed with a raging fighting spirit, so his speed was also increased. Xianyuan Mose remained unarmed as the other party brandished their swords. Xianyuan Mose, who originally had the upper hand in the battle, gradually fell into a disadvantageous position as the other party attacked like a madman. There were several times when the other party's swords almost stabbed him in the vital areas. Fengjiu watched from the side. His gaze moved slightly, and the evil charm on his face disappeared. What replaced it was a cold and sharp expression. The people from the four sects below were all stunned. They didn't make a sound. They only saw that the black-robed man called Xianyuan Mose had slashed that Supremacy's face. Such a deep wound would probably leave a scar even if it healed. What shocked them even more was that the Supremacy had actually taken out a weapon. He was actually trying to use the sword in his hand to injure Xianyuan Mose. In this way, even if he won, it wouldn't be honorable. Immortal Monarch, should we ask them to stop? If this continues, I'm afraid. A Supremacy said. He couldn't help but frown when he saw this scene. There's no hurry. Their strength is still being stimulated. Let them fight. A immortal monarch said and waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to say more. Fengjiu glanced at those people and saw that they were all watching with great interest. They were treating this battle of life and death as a show. She curled her lips and sneered silently. In front of her, the sound of robes being torn was heard. Fengjiu looked over and saw that Xianyuan Mo's robes had been slashed. Perhaps it was because his skin wasn't injured, and there wasn't any blood. At this moment, she saw that when Xianyuan Mo leaned forward to fight, he kicked the blade in his opponent's hand. The blade was tossed into the air and then fell on the stage. Of the supremacy's attack. The venerable one whose blade was kicked was enraged. He lunged forward in an attempt to fight in close combat, but Xianyuan Mo kicked him in the ribs. Even Fengjiu, who was standing at the side, could faintly hear the sound of bones breaking. The cracking sound was extremely clear. Ah! A miserable shriek rang out as the venerable one was kicked off the stage by Xianyuan Mo, and he fell towards the crowd of cultivators and disciples below who were dumbfounded by what they saw. Hiss! Supremacy. Chapter 2888. After the exclamations, there was a strange silence. Everyone stared at the black-robed man on the high platform as if they had seen a ghost. He actually defeated a supremacy. That was a supremacy of a sect. How could a supremacy with the strength of a heavenly god lose to a cultivator from the lower realm? When did a cultivator from the lower realm become so powerful? At that moment, the immortal monarchs involuntarily stood up, their faces filled with astonishment. They had thought that the supremacy of the sect would win in the end, so they had not stopped the fight. They had even thought that the black-robed man should suffer a setback for his arrogance and pride. They had not expected that he would be slapped in the face. A supremacy of a sect had actually lost to a cultivator from the lower realm. If this were to spread, they would become a joke. Earlier, the black-robed man's speed had been so swift that they hadn't been able to stop him or lend a hand in time. They could only watch helplessly as the scene unfolded before their eyes. Fengjiu watched with a smile, his face filled with pride. This was her man. Hers. Look at how outstanding he was. On the high platform, the handsome, godlike man in black robes stood with one hand behind his back and the other hand on his abdomen. His black robes fluttered in the wind, and he exuded an incomparably noble aura. A powerful, sharp, and intimidating pressure filled the air. After this battle, his name, Xianyuan Mo, and his magnificence, were deeply imprinted in the minds of the tens of thousands of disciples of the four sects. My goodness, he's even more powerful than Fengjiu. Supremacy Lingmu blinked, his mouth wide open in shock. He had not expected this kid to be so powerful without making a sound. It was true that a true master did not show his true colors. Oh, he's not bad. I didn't expect you to have such good taste. This kid is not bad. The beautiful supremacy glanced at Fengjiu with her beautiful eyes. Fengjiu proudly raised his chin, looking as proud as a fox. Of course, don't you know whose man he is? Since you're so powerful, I'd like to experience it for myself. Another venerable one from a sect slammed the table and flew out. He stood in the middle of the stage and stared at Xianyuan Mo with a sharp gaze. Do you dare to accept my challenge? Before Xianyuan Mo could say anything, Fengjiu, who was always protective of his people, could not stand it. She snorted coldly and walked out. She walked up to the venerable one and said, I couldn't tell. Didn't see anything. The venerable one glanced at Fengjiu, who was dressed as a man, and frowned slightly. A woman was dressed as a man for no reason. What a mess. Fengjiu glanced at him and said softly, I didn't expect you to be so thick-skinned. You. The venerable one was furious. He wanted to attack, but he felt that it would be beneath his dignity to attack a woman, so he snorted coldly. How dare you? He released a powerful divine might, which suddenly enveloped Fengjiu. It was as if he wanted to use his divine might to force her to retreat. But who would have thought that after he released his divine might, the woman in front of him still stood in front of him with the same expression as before. She raised her eyebrows and looked at him with a contemptuous gaze, which annoyed him. Chapter 2889. Fengjiu ignored him and said to Xianyuan Mose, "Let's go. This place isn't very good." Hearing this, everyone's mouths twitched. This place wasn't very good. This was where the immortal sects were located. So many cultivators wanted to join this sect, yet he said it wasn't very good. Hey, don't go. Venerable Spiritwood stopped them with a smile. Come to my place and sit on my mountain. Once you're there, no one will dare to disrespect you. How about it? Let's go, shall we? Fengjiu looked at the child who was only half her waist and kept saying such words. She only felt very strange. Although she knew that this child was an old monster who was hundreds of years old, the visual impact still made her feel that this was just a child. Therefore, she smiled and said, "Venerable Spiritwood, right? Not bad, not bad. You actually remembered my name." He was obviously very happy and looked at Fengjiu with a smile. It's like this. I don't plan to become a disciple of anyone, so I won't stay here for long. Moreover, I don't have a good impression of this place. She said with a smile, but there was no trace of a smile in her eyes. Venerable Spiritwood knew that the tacit consent of the immortal lords had angered her. He sighed inwardly. This little girl was only one step away from entering the Profound Light sect, but she didn't come over. It was obvious that she was a very casual person. It was also because they understood this point that they wanted to take him in as their disciple. But who would have thought that they would come here today to coincide with the competition between the four great sects? Now that this matter had happened, it seemed that they could not force this person to stay. Thinking of this, he nodded. Since that's the case, all right. I won't force you. When the beautiful Venerable saw this, she said, I also don't want to force you. However, Fengjiu, my place is really good. Do you really not want to reconsider? Thank you, Venerable Lord, but there's no need. She shook her head and refused. All right then. In that case, I'll send you down the mountain. The beautiful Venerable Lord said. Just as she was about to walk forward, she heard a voice. Wait. A Venerable Lord stood up and walked forward with his hands behind his back. If you leave after injuring our sect's Venerable Lord, wouldn't our immortal sect become a joke? What? Are you all trying to stop us and prevent us from leaving? Are you really the exalted lords of some celestial sect? Fengjiu glanced at the middle-aged man with a smile that was not a smile. It's very simple. You've already defeated a supremacy. As long as you accept our challenge and win against us, you can leave if you want. We won't stop you. However, if you lose, that his voice paused as his gaze fell upon the two of them. He then said meaningfully, if you lose, the two of you will have to acknowledge us as your masters. Become a disciple of our sect. Upon hearing this, Venerable Spiritwood jumped up. You bastard, CK. You're SSS. I tried every possible way to persuade them, but they weren't willing to take me as their master. You're actually using such a despicable method to make them compete with you two old fellows. You should be thick-skinned and tell me how old are you this year. Chapter 2890. That's right, Lingmu. Stop messing around. The other middle-aged man also berated Venerable Lingmu. The two of them were his senior brothers and were of higher seniority than him, so they naturally had the right to berate him. Venerable Lingmu couldn't help but blush when he was yelled at by the two of them. He said angrily, Fine, go ahead. I don't care, I'll just watch. He angrily flung his sleeves and returned to his seat. When the beautiful Venerable saw this, she covered her red lips and giggled. Senior brother CK, this doesn't seem very generous. Who doesn't know that you and senior brother Muaxayan are the strongest venerables of our generation? If you fight them, won't you win for sure? My master is right. Aren't we just taking advantage of our seniority? Bullying the weak. I've been in the sect for so long, but this is the first time I've found out that Venerable CK is such a person. A graceful and charming voice sounded. When the disciples heard this voice, they were all delighted. It's Martial Aunt Wanyan. Martial Aunt Wanyan is here. I didn't expect her to actually come. Everyone says that Martial Aunt Wanyan is the #1 beauty of the 4 sects and doesn't usually show her face. I didn't expect her to actually come today. That's great. I've wanted to see Martial Aunt Wanyan for a long time. Today, I can finally see her face. The disciples below were all excited. The originally silent scene became lively as they all looked in the direction of the voice. Fingzhou, who was standing next to Xianyuan Mose, felt that the voice was vaguely familiar. Just as he was thinking about it, he saw a red figure riding on a red-crowned crane. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind, and her black hair fluttered gently. At first glance, Fingzhou couldn't help but be delighted. He waved at the newcomer. Big sister. The newcomer was actually her sworn sister, Wanyan Qianhua. No wonder she hadn't heard any news of her over there. So she had come here. What's more, he didn't expect to meet her here. When Xianyuan Mose heard Fingzhou's words, he also looked at the woman. Wanyan Qianhua. Zhu had once mentioned that she was an elder sister who had become sworn brothers with her. However, after the 100 Years Mountain, they had never had the chance to meet. They did not expect to meet here. In the past, he had only heard her say that the Wanyan Qianhua was good in every way. Now that he saw it, the woman in red who came on the immortal crane was indeed a stunning beauty. Although she liked to wear red like his Zhu, she wore 2 different styles. Wanyan Qianhua, who was sitting on the red-crowned crane, immediately saw the dazzling red figure on the high platform. Looking at that beautiful and exquisite face, which was still so familiar, she couldn't help but smile. She gently patted the red-crowned crane's head and landed on the high platform. Xiao Zhou, it's really you. As soon as Wanyan Qianhua saw her, she went forward and hugged her. However, when the softness in front of her chest touched Fingzhou's stiff and flat chest, she lowered her head in confusion. At the same time, she reached out and touched it again and again. Where are your breasts? What a sin. You actually tied them flat. How much suffering do you have to suffer? A few black lines streaked across Fingzhou's forehead. She didn't even have time to react. Her sister actually did such a thing in front of so many people. It really made her speechless. Chapter 2891. Xianyuan Mose's face darkened when he saw this. If it wasn't for the fact that this person was a woman and was Zhu's sworn sister, he would definitely chop off the hands that were touching her chest. Sister, pay attention to your image. Fengzhou pulled her hands down helplessly and said. That's true. Wanyan Qianhua covered her mouth and smiled coquettishly. After glancing at Fengzhou, she sized up Xianyuan Mose at the side. Then, she shifted her gaze and looked at the 2 venerables at the side. Venerable CK, Muaxian, Fengzhou is my sister. Don't bully her. Otherwise, he. Her beautiful eyes turned and the light in her eyes flowed. Her slender jade-like hands played with her hair and she said lightly, I'll be angry. Upon hearing this and looking at Wanyan Qianhua's expression, the 2 venerables shuddered. This evildoer's smile was definitely not a good thing. When they thought of the time when she first came here, she would hold the 10,000 ghost banner and collect ghosts every night. The howls of the ghosts still made them feel like it was yesterday. Fengzhou looked at Wanyan Qianhua with excitement in her eyes. Look, this was her sworn sister. She even dared to threaten the venerables. as expected of her sister. Qianhua, so this is your sister. When the beautiful venerables heard this, her eyes immediately smiled into a line. That's really a case of not entering the same family. Fengzhou, don't you think so? Your sister has already become my disciple. You should come too. Xiaozhou, this is my master, Venerable Shuiyu. Wanyan Qianhua said. Fengzhou greets Venerable Shuiyu. She bowed respectfully. Of course, it was for her sister's sake. We're all family. There's no need to be so polite. You can ask your sister and you'll know. I treat these disciples like my own sisters. She covered her red lips and chuckled. Her beautiful eyes fell on Fengzhou. Fengzhou heard this and smiled. He only said to Wanyan Qianhua, Sister, we just arrived here. After we settle down, we'll come and meet you again. Come to my place and stay for 2 days. I'll accompany you down the mountain later. Wanyan Qianhua said. Before that, shouldn't you fight with us first? Venerable CK spoke again. He looked at Fengzhou and Xianyuan Mose and said, The Immortal Ascension Ladder only opens once a year. It was Ling Mu and Venerable Shuiyu who suggested that it be opened. Now that you've come from there, it can be considered fate with our sect. However, you've injured our sect leaders' venerables. It's one thing if you join our sect, but if you don't, how can we let you leave just like that? What will happen to our sect's reputation? He looked at the two of them and said in a low voice, For today's battle, even if you don't want to, you still have to. Venerable CK, are you trying to force them? Wanyan Qianhua's expression turned cold. The aura around him changed. The chilling feeling immediately made the people around him shudder involuntarily. Chapter 2892. Under such circumstances, the Immortal Sect naturally wanted to recruit them into their sect. However, since they could not get them to join their sect with good words, they wanted to use their strength to suppress them. They wanted to let Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou know that there was always someone better than them. No matter how strong they were no match for the Immortal Sect's supremacies. If they did not subdue the two of them, the Immortal Sect's reputation would be tarnished after this battle. Therefore, the Immortal Sect was pressuring them to accept their challenge. That said, the challenge was not fair. Xianyuan Mose could defeat that supremacy, but he might not be able to defeat Senior Brother C. Quebec. Moreover, even if he had a slight chance of winning, Fengzhou's small body would probably defeat Senior Brother Mu Axane. After all, these two were the strongest supremacies in their generation. At this point, the Immortal Sect's Immortal Master did not speak up to stop them. Evidently, he had tacitly approved of their challenge. Under such tacit approval, even Wanyan Qianhua could not stop them. Xianyuan Mose, who had been silent all this while, glanced at the two people in front of him with his deep, dark eyes. He had been sizing them up since the moment they said they wanted to challenge him. After weighing the pros and cons, he felt that they could fight. Moreover, he knew that if he and Audiobook were to emerge victorious, not only would they become famous among the four sects, but they would also have a certain amount of deterrence. Thinking of the benefits they would gain from this battle, he glanced at Fengzhou and said, Audiobook, since they want to fight us again and again, why don't we accept their challenge? Hearing this, Fengzhou looked at the two people. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, It's easy if you want to fight us. However, we have a prior agreement. Otherwise, who knows what tricks you'll play after this battle. Our words carry enormous weight, especially in front of so many people. How could we go back on our words? CK Supremacy said in a low voice, as if he was very displeased with Fengzhou's questioning. Fengzhou glanced at him and said leisurely, Who would believe that? You! He glared angrily. He was a supremacy. How could he go back on his words? This Fengzhou was really infuriating. Since you want to fight, we will only fight with you if the heavens and earth bear witness. Otherwise, there is no need to talk about it. She smiled, her eyes slightly curved, and a trace of calculation flashed through the depths of her eyes. Good. Supremacy. CK opened his mouth to speak, but Fengjiu interrupted him. Hold on. Fengjiu said, stopping him from continuing, if we lose, we have to acknowledge you as our masters. Similarly, if you lose, you have to acknowledge us as your masters. This is ridiculous. Both Venerable CK and Mu Axian widened their eyes in astonishment, flinging their sleeves and cursing. They were venerable ones, and they wanted to take them as their masters? How could this be? If word got out, he would be a laughing stock. Ridiculous. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and asked, this is clearly a very fair thing. How is it ridiculous? Besides, we haven't fought yet, have we? Are you already afraid? If that's the case, why are you still competing with us? Can't you just let us go? Chapter 2893. At this moment, the two of them would never have thought that Fengjiu was scheming against them. They did not think that Xianyuanmose and Fengjiu were stronger than them. Even if they were at the same level as the two of them, they would not be able to defeat them. Wanyan Qianhua saw this and glanced at Fengjiu. Seeing her smile at her, she was relieved. Based on her understanding of Fengjiu, she would not do something that she was not confident of. In this case, she would just wait and see. Xianyuanmose did not doubt Fengjiu's words. His gaze fell on the two of them. Seeing that they were hesitating, he asked, "What's wrong? You don't dare." "What a joke. How can we not dare?" Mu Axian snorted coldly. She stared sharply at Xianyuanmose and said, in front of so many people, in front of heaven and earth, if I, Mu Axian, lose today, I will acknowledge the winner as my master. If I go back on my words, heaven and earth will punish me. CK also said, same for me, C Quebec. If I lose, I will acknowledge the winner as my master. If I go back on my words, heaven and earth will punish me. Hearing this, Xianyuanmose and Fengjiu smiled at each other and said at the same time, Xianyuanmose, Fengjiu, if I lose this battle, I will acknowledge the winner as my master. If I go back on my words, heaven and earth will punish me. Good. CK and Mu Axian shouted at the same time. She looked at the two of them and said, remember what you said. Of course. The two of them replied. The four immortal monarchs and the venerables around them were dumbfounded. They did not recover for a long time. Why did they suddenly swear an oath to heaven and earth? Did they make a mistake somewhere? The disciples of the four sects looked at this scene and did not understand. Why did it suddenly become like this? However, they knew that the venerables of their sects would win in the end. Therefore, everyone's interest was aroused by the oath to heaven and earth. They all shouted for the competition to start quickly. Seeing that the disciples were in high spirits, Fengjiu's eyes moved slightly. She said to Wanyan Qianhua, sister, I have something to say to you. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua walked to the side with her and asked, what's wrong? Sister, this is such a good opportunity. Let's set up a bet. Fengjiu looked at her with sparkling eyes with a hint of excitement. I think these disciples are all rich. They should have a lot of treasures on them. Whether it's crystal coins or anything else, you can bet them all. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua was stunned for a moment. Then, she smiled and said, okay, be careful. Leave the rest to me. She patted Qin Shui's hand and walked to the side. Fengjiu came to Xianyuanmose's side. Looking at CK and Mu Axian, he asked, how do you want to fight? 1-on-1 or 2-on-2? Fengjiu, you're quite arrogant. You dare to leave the choice to us. CK glanced at Fengjiu and Xianyuanmose. Then, she turned to Muaxin and asked, "What do you think?" "It doesn't matter. 2 on 2 is fine too. We can choose one of these two and let them acknowledge us as their masters at the same time," Muaxin said. She obviously felt that victory was in her hands. Whether it was Xianyuanmo's or Fengzhou, she had to admit that these two were very outstanding. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled. "Okay. 2 on 2 then. It'll be faster to finish it in one round." Chapter 2894. The two cultivators who had retreated to the side on the high platform had already jumped down and stood below the platform to watch. The supremacies who were seated watched this scene with interest in their eyes. Only the 4 immortal lords from the immortal sects were deep in thought and puzzlement. Wanyan Chenhua's voice was heard from the other side. "I'll start a game. Let's bet on who will win. Anyone who is interested can have a share." Her voice was seductive and charming. Upon hearing her words, the disciples below rushed to her side and took out gold coins or crystal stones to place their bets. The supremacies who were seated on the high platform saw this and could not help but shake their heads. "Wanyan Qianhua is really too what? I've never had to worry about my disciples. I'm just setting up a small game to liven things up." "What? Do you have a problem with it?" Venerable Snow Jade cast a sidelong glance at the man who had just spoken. It was as if she would fight him if he continued to speak. Seeing her like this, the supremacy did not say anything else. Everyone knew that Supremacy Snow Jade was not to be trifled with and that she was vengeful. If she targeted them, they could guarantee that nothing good would happen. Fengzhou watched as Wanyan Qianhua drew a space on the ground and wrote down their names and the supremacies for those who wanted to place their bets. She could not help but narrow her eyes when she saw a small mountain of money piled up in front of the 2 supremacies' names. She said to Xianyuanmo's beside her, "The people here are really rich." Xianyuanmo's looked back and said, "We've made a fortune today." "Yes, I think so too." She nodded with a smile. Not only would they have 2 more disciples to order around, but they would also win a lot of money and build up their reputation. Yes, this battle was indeed worth it. "Be careful," Xianyuanmo's reminded her. "Yes, I know," Fengzhou replied and pulled away from him. She looked at the 2 supremacies who were talking and asked, "Can we begin?" The 2 supremacies looked at the immortal monarchs of their sections. When the immortal monarch saw this, he said, "Don't overdo it. Don't kill. Let's begin." As soon as he finished speaking, the venerables on the stage and the disciples of the 4 sects below the stage all quieted down. They all held their breaths as they looked at the 4 people on the stage. This was a 2 versus 2 battle, and the 2 of them were going against the 2 strongest venerable ones in the sect. Although the result was expected, they could not help but feel nervous and expectant. 2 venerables making a move, what kind of intense scene would it be? In an instant, everyone felt that something was different. The 4 people on the stage exuded a strong pressure. This pressure spread in the air and condensed on the stage. Even the audience below the stage could feel that Xianyuanmo's and Fengzhou's pressure was different from before. "Look, why does their aura seem to have changed?" "Yes. It seems to have become somewhat powerful. It seems to be very powerful. Moreover, this kind of power is not inferior to the 2 venerables." The disciples below the stage were discussing. They were shocked and excited, as if they had not expected this. On the stage, the venerables and the 4 immortal monarchs were shocked when they saw the pressure exuding from Fengzhou and Xianyuanmo's. They stood up and lost their composure as they exclaimed. Chapter 2895. Both of them were peak heavenly gods. How was that possible? Xianyuanmo's had clearly displayed the strength of a heavenly god, but that was not the strength of a peak heavenly god. Furthermore, Fingzhou and Fingzhou were clearly only at the peak Immortal Emperor stage when they first saw her. How did she suddenly change? A thought flashed through their minds, causing them to involuntarily gasp. They had concealed their strength. The two of them had actually concealed their strength. Moreover, they had concealed their strength in front of so many of them. Even though they had repeatedly sized them up, they had not been able to see through their true strength. This terrifying concealment caused their hearts to tremble. Previously, they had thought that the two honorables would win without a doubt. Now, however, they felt a faint sense of unease, especially after Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou had fearlessly asked them to swear an oath to the heavens. Now, it seemed like they had dug a hole for the two honorables to jump into. The two honorables were both peak heavenly gods, just like the two of them. Logically speaking, the two honorables had been in the heavenly god stage for many years. Even if they were at the same level of strength, it would be difficult for anyone to compare to them. However, now, as they looked at Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou, who exuded confidence and sharpness from between their brows, they felt a little uncertain. The two of them did not hide their strength, and a powerful and intimidating aura burst out from their bodies. One was black, and the other was red. The aura from their bodies was so similar, and they were both so domineering and intimidating. At this moment, their feelings were complicated. Did they lose two honorables in this battle? Or did they lose two more monarch-like figures? You're both peak heavenly gods. CK and Mu Axian widened their eyes in shock. These two freaks. How old were they? They had actually cultivated to the peak heavenly god stage. One had to know that even after entering the heavenly god stage, some people could not reach the peak heavenly god stage even after cultivating for 50 or even 100 years. However, these two freaks were actually both peak heavenly gods. No wonder they dared to fight with them. It turned out that they had such strength as a trump card. However, even if they were peak heavenly gods, they were probably no match for the two of them. Fingzhou looked at them with a smile and said leisurely, "Unfortunately, I've just advanced a while ago, so I haven't been able to find someone to practice with. Today's my lucky day." Hearing this, the corners of the two honorables' mouths twitched. Was he trying to use them? This Fengzhou's words. "Let's see what you're capable." Honorable Mu Axian said. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure swept past like a gust of wind. The disciples of the four sects below the stage could only see a gust of wind carrying a pressure that could be seen with the naked eye. They did not even see Honorable Mu Axian's figure, let alone his moves. However, standing there, Fingzhou narrowed his eyes and stared ahead. Through the gust of wind, he stared at Honorable Mu Axian, who was charging towards him. Then, he said to Xianyuanmos, "Let me stretch my muscles first." Chapter 2896. Venerable Mu Axian had no intention of dodging. When he saw the two streams of flame in Fingzhou's hands coming at him like two ferocious beasts, he immediately turned his palms, and two wind blades formed into two wolf heads. They opened their mouths wide and pounced at Fingzhou, as if they wanted to swallow the flames in one gulp. Wind wolf roll. Venerable Mu Axian roared. His deep and majestic voice shook the hearts of the people below the stage. The four immortal masters on the stage held their breaths and looked over. Xianyuanmos and CK did not make a move at this time. They were also watching the battle between Fingzhou and Mu Axian. They all wanted to know how strong the two sides were. Although CK had always thought that Fingzhou and Xianyuanmos could not defeat them, he was still a little surprised and cautious after seeing their strength. But now, he saw that Mu Axian had used 70% of his strength in this attack. Even he would not be able to withstand it, let alone Fingzhou. Therefore, he felt that this attack might knock Fingzhou off the stage. If that happened, the outcome would be clear almost immediately. But who knew that in the next moment, he almost jumped up when he saw this scene. When the ferocious beasts condensed from flames collided with Muaxian's wind wolves, the collision of the two streams of air violently produced powerful wind blades and pressure. The sound of the wind and the flames whistled like the roar of a wild dragon, making people tremble in fear. He watched as the wind wolves swallowed the flames in one gulp and pounced forward to attack Fingzhou. But in the next moment, the two wind wolves were covered by the flames in an instant and merged into one. They turned back and pounced at Muaxian. Hiss! Impossible! Muaxian was shocked and immediately wanted to retreat. But no matter how fast he retreated, he could not outrun the impact of the two streams of air formed by the convergence of the two forces. In almost an instant, the fire wolf pounced on him. At that moment of imminent peril, a gust of wind instantly surged out from his body to protect him, attempting to disperse and extinguish the fire wolf that was pouncing towards him. However, the gust of wind that surged out from his body could only protect his life at that moment and lessen the heavy injury from this blow. Whoosh! Bang! The powerful force and the flames collided directly with the gust of wind and landed on Muaxian's body. The flames expanded along with the flames, burning his robe. The force of the impact also knocked him back more than 10 meters. Hiss! Ah! It's so hot! Muaxian cried out in surprise as he hurriedly put out the fire. However, seeing that the fire could not be extinguished, he decisively took off his outer robe and only then did he brush away the fire on his body. Even so, his eyebrows were burnt and the ends of his hair were burnt. His dignified face was covered in dirt and he cut a sorry figure. The people on and off the stage were shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. This is impossible, right? With just one move, Venerable Muaxian was reduced to such a sorry state. Seeing Venerable Muaxian, who was usually incomparably dignified, standing on the stage wearing only a white inner robe, touching his eyebrows while looking at his hair, and looking at his dusty appearance, they could not help but want to laugh. But when they saw his dark face, they felt that if they laughed at this time, it would be very embarrassing for him, so they all held back their laughter and tried their best to look elsewhere. Chapter 2897. It's our turn. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianyuan Mo's black robe fluttered. He condensed a sword in his hand and dashed forward like the wind. Upon hearing Xianyuan Mo's words, CK quickly calmed himself down. He had no time to care about Muaxian's situation. When he saw Xianyuan Mo's sword coming at him, he waved his hand and slashed his palm through the air, creating several palm prints. The palm prints struck out and dispersed Xianyuan Mo's sword chi. At the same time, he leaned forward and attacked with a swift and fierce palm wind. Whoosh! Whoosh! The palm wind changed and turned into a fist. The fist force contained a hidden force. Every move was swift and fierce and full of destructive power. It was aimed directly at Xianyuan Mo's. Xianyuan Mo's dodged and retreated. He changed from attacking to defending. His deep eyes were fixed on CK's attack, as if he was forced to retreat by CK's swift and fierce attack. Below the stage, Wanyan Qianhua looked at the people on the stage. He looked at Fengzhou's battle, then looked at Xianyuan Mo's battle. Compared to Fengzhou's side, Xianyuan Mo's side looked like they were being attacked to the point where they couldn't fight back. Not only did CK feel that Xianyuan Mo was unable to fight back, but even the four immortal masters felt that Xianyuan Mo's strength was not enough to fight against C Quebec. Therefore, they gradually relaxed. However, just as CK forced Xianyuan Mo to the corner of the stage, Xianyuan Mo's aura suddenly changed. His body instantly spun forward, sucking in all the aura in the surrounding air. He suddenly struck out with his palm. Whoosh! CK was attacking step by step. When he suddenly saw Xianyuan Mo's change in attack style, he couldn't help but be shocked. He quickly retreated and condensed a wind blade in his palm. Bang! The two powerful forces formed by the wind from the two palms collided violently with a loud bang. The airflow spread to both sides, and the two figures took a few steps back at the same time. But the moment they retreated, Xianyuanmo's figure shot out like a bolt of lightning. With a tap of his foot, he leaped high into the air, then shot down at a strange speed. The air blade formed by the airflow of spiritual energy carried a powerful pressure as it shot down towards Sir C. Quebec Kiss. How is this possible? CK was shocked. How could he move at that speed? He was shocked. He gathered his spirit power in his hands and tried to block the attack. There was a loud bang and his feet sank into the ground. Two deep footprints appeared on the stage and his body was shortened by more than half. Just as Sir Seek was startled, Xianyuanmo's instantly grabbed his hand. Xianyuanmo's flipped to the side, lifted him up, and flung him away. "Ah!" He cried out in surprise as his body was flung to a corner and slammed heavily into the stage. The blood and qi in his body suddenly surged up. As his blood and qi surged, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Pooh! Blood dyed the stage red. Everyone on and off the stage was shocked. They were all dumbfounded as they watched the scene unfold on the stage. How was this possible? That was CK. He was the strongest venerable of his generation. He. Chapter 2898. CK's eyelids twitched at the thought that if he lost to Xianyuanmo's, he would have to acknowledge him as his master. If that really happened, it would be too embarrassing. Thinking of this, CK quickly stabilized his strength and increased his spiritual power. Two green vines suddenly sprang out from his sleeves. The two green vines grew rapidly as if they had a life of their own and attacked Xianyuanmo's. The vines that sprang out from the green vines also grew rapidly. Not long after, two of the vines wrapped around Xianyuanmo's feet. When Xianyuanmo saw this, he waved his sleeves, and a visible stream of spiritual energy sliced through the air like a blade, cutting the rattan in half. At the same time, another rattan abruptly shot out with a whoosh and slapped towards Xianyuanmo's with a powerful wind blade. Xianyuanmo's immediately dodged. With a move of his hand, the Xianyuan sword instantly appeared in his hand. With a sweep of his sword aura, the sword aura whizzed through the air and chopped off all the vines. When CK saw this, he leaped into the air. After the vines in his hand disappeared, a long sword with a sharp glint appeared. The long sword carried a swift and fierce aura as it swept out, bringing about streaks of sword shadows as it slashed towards Xianyuanmo's. At the same time, he reached out with his other hand, and another long sword appeared in his palm. When he attacked with both swords, everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Hiss! That's CK's double shadow swords. He usually doesn't show it to others easily, but he actually used it today. It seems like he's been forced into a corner. CK's venerable has wind and wood attributes, but his most powerful skill is the double shadow 8 forms of the double shadow swords. Back then, he used this to become the #1 venerable in the sect. I didn't expect him to use the double shadow swords to deal with Xianyuanmo's today. It seems like he views Xianyuanmo's as a formidable opponent. Isn't it? Xianyuanmo's wasn't at a disadvantage when the two of them fought on the stage. Venerable CK probably understood this and used the dual shadow swords. However, no matter how strong Xianyuanmo's is, he's bound to lose after Venerable CK used the dual shadow swords. On the other side, Venerable Muaxayan was sent flying by Fingzhou's fists. When he spat out a mouthful of blood, he was sent flying more than 10 meters away and almost fell off the high platform. Fortunately, he hooked the edge of the high platform with the tip of his foot and steadied himself. Aren't you a heavenly deity? Why is he still a mystic? Venerable Muaxian widened his eyes in exasperation. He was clearly exchanging blows with her, but who knew that Fingzhou's spiritual aura would suddenly change into a mystic aura to fight him? Mystic aura was very important in fighting strength, and her speed and movement techniques were very strange. He couldn't cope with her attacks and had to take the full force of her fists. When those fists landed on his body, if he didn't have the strength of a heavenly deity protecting his body, a few of his ribs would have been broken. However, even with the strength of a heavenly deity protecting his body, this attack caused the blood in his body to surge violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Fingzhou landed on the ground, her red robes fluttering in the air like a dazzling flower. She raised her eyebrows and chuckled. Who told you that a spiritual cultivator can't be a mystic cultivator? Unfortunately, I'm a mystic and spiritual dual cultivator. Take this. Chapter 2899. As he shouted, he ran towards Quebec. His comical appearance left the audience dumbfounded. Look, look, look. His clothes were untidy, his face was covered in dirt, and he was running away. Where was the dignified bearing of a venerable? CK, who was fighting with Xianyuan Mose, immediately turned around and glared at him. I can't even take care of myself. How can I take care of you? Let's join forces. Let's knock Fingzhou off the stage first, then deal with Xianyuan Mose. Mu Axian suggested. That's a good idea. Fingzhou, who had chased after them, said with a smile. He looked at Mu Axian and said, let's kick you off the stage first, then deal with Quebec. CK blocked Xianyuan Mose's Xianyuan sword with his swords and quickly retreated. At the same time, he pulled Mu Axian to his side. He panted slightly as he looked at the two people standing together. His gaze swept past Xianyuan Mose's sword and landed on Fingzhou. Fingzhou, you. Before he could finish speaking, Fingzhou interrupted him. As a disciple, I can't directly address my master by his name. Fingzhou's clear eyes turned and the corners of his lips curled up as he looked at the two of them. Otherwise, as your master, we will have to retrain you. You. The two of them were so angry that smoke seemed to be coming out of their heads. In the past, who would dare to talk back to them so impudently and rudely? As long as their faces darkened, the disciples below them would all obediently lower their heads and bow respectfully. But now, Fengjiu had already infuriated them several times. The most hateful thing was that the two of them were not good at bickering. When she said that, they often couldn't say a word and could only suppress their anger. Mu Axian, who had come to CK's side, took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He stared at Fingzhou and said, don't be so smug. I haven't used all my strength to fight with you. In a while, Why did you suddenly attack? His expression changed and was filled with panic and astonishment. Before he could finish speaking, Fingzhou, who had been standing about 10 meters away from him, suddenly attacked him with a sword in his hand. The sharp sword aura carried a green glow and the flames at the tip of the sword made him swallow his saliva involuntarily. To think that he, a venerable, was actually beaten by Fingzhou to the point that he was afraid of her. If news of this spread, how would he have the face to meet others? Immediately, he also drew his weapon and went forward. The two swords clashed and sparks flew. At the same time, CK also went forward and attacked Fingzhou from both sides fiercely. He wanted to beat her off the stage first and then deal with Xianyuan Mose. Seeing the two of them attacking Fingzhou from both sides, Xianyuan Mose snorted coldly and his black figure flashed and joined the battle. The four of them fought on the stage. Their figures flashed and the shadows of their swords refracted. Streaks of air blades attacked from the stage. Some of them attacked the venerable sitting on the stage while others attacked the disciples below the stage. They were so frightened that they cried out in a low voice and broke out in cold sweat. Chapter 2900. Thump. Thump. Two loud thuds rang out, followed by two muffled groans and gasps from the crowd. Aside from that, the area was completely silent. No one said a word. They only widened their eyes in disbelief as they stared at the two venerables who had been kicked off the stage in a sorry state. They lost. They lost. They lost to two cultivators from the lower realm. Did they see wrongly? CK and Muaxayan, who had been kicked off the stage, stood up while clutching their aching chests. They stared at the two figures, one black and one red, who were walking towards them from the stage. Their old faces flushed red. They had actually lost. They had actually lost to the two of them in front of so many people. Although they found it hard to believe and somewhat unacceptable, the two of them were not ordinary people, so they quickly calmed down. They looked at the two people standing on the stage and respectfully knelt down to pay their respects. Si Quebec Muaxin. Greetings, masters. Thank you for showing mercy. Although they had lost the competition, they could not lose their spirit. Since they had lost, they had to fulfill their promise according to the oath they had made earlier. Moreover, they also knew that in the battle just now, the two of them had obviously shown mercy. If they had not shown mercy, even if they had not died, they would have been seriously injured. After this battle, they were wholeheartedly convinced of the two's strength. Naturally, they were convinced from the bottom of their hearts. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at Xianyuanmo's with a smile. Then, the two of them said at the same time, "Stand up." When they heard the two voices, one deep and cold, the other full of laughter, the two of them could not help but smile bitterly in their hearts. After respectfully acknowledging the two, they stood up. Seeing this, the crowd on the stage finally came to their senses. Supremacy Lingmu laughed heartily. I didn't expect this. In just a short while, the two of us have become Fengjiu's disciples. Ha 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 ha, you can do whatever you want. You want to fight with us. This is the consequence. Venerable Lingmu was delighted. He hadn't expected this outcome either. Ha ha ha. Fortunately, I did not learn from you guys. Venerable Snow Jade covered her mouth and chuckled. She was also watching the scene before her with interest. This was great. He originally wanted to take in Xianyuanmo's and Fengjiu, but who would have thought that the two of them would take him in instead? Perhaps, even the immortal monarch did not expect this, right? She turned her beautiful eyes and looked at the four immortal monarchs. She saw that each of them had a look of astonishment on their faces. Clearly, they had yet to recover from their shock. Below the stage, Wanyan Qianhua was also smiling like a flower. He was very happy. Not only did they have two powerful disciples, but they also won a lot of treasures and became famous in the Four Immortal sect. At this time, one of the immortal monarchs, who was the host, stood up and walked to Xianyuanmo's and Fengjiu's side. He said, "It's true that the new generation excels the old. The two of you have really surprised everyone. You're too kind, immortal monarch." As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at the two people below the stage and said, "CK, Muaxian, why aren't you preparing a cave abode for us to rest?" Hearing this, the two people below the stage finally came to their senses. "Yes, masters, please follow us." As they spoke, they looked at the immortal monarch on the stage and cupped their hands. "Immortal monarch, we'll bring our two masters to rest first." Chapter 29:01. Everyone on the stage looked at each other in dismay as they watched them leave on their flying swords. Was it over just like that? The two of them had taken advantage of the situation and gained two peak divine realm experts as their disciples? After all, not only were CK and Muaxayan powerful, the forces behind them weren't small either. Now, the two of them had become the disciples of that pair of young men. It truly made them feel as if they were dreaming. In a corner below the stage, Wanyan Qianhua was collecting the mountain of treasures when she heard the cries of the people around her. "I bet all the money I had on me. Who knew that I would lose it all? Oh, my crystal stones." That's a whole year's worth of expenses given to me by my family. Just like that, just like that. How could the two venerables lose? How could they lose? I thought they would definitely win. One by one, the disciples said with a sullen face. Pairs of eyes stared at the treasures that Wang Yan Qianhua had collected. The glittering treasures made them dizzy. So many treasures had become the treasures of these two people, causing them to feel a burst of pain in their hearts. Oh! The two of them have made a lot of money. Venerable Snow Jade came to Wang Yan Qianhua's side and couldn't help but chuckle when she saw the pile of treasures being collected by her. Master, I'll take these to Xiao Jiu and the others first, Wang Yan Qianhua said as she bowed to her master. Then, she rode her red-crowned crane to a mountain peak. Because of this battle, the people of the four major immortal sects knew that the competition couldn't go on. Therefore, after a short discussion, the four immortal dukes allowed the people below to leave with their disciples. On the other side, CK and Mu Axian brought Xianyuan Mose and Fingzhou to a cave residence. They stopped in front of it and said, Masters, please rest in this cave residence first. The things inside are relatively complete. As for the other small things, we'll ask our disciples to bring them up later. Xianyuan Mose glanced at the cave residence and nodded to Fingzhou. This place is not bad. The spiritual energy is abundant, and there are no other caves nearby. It looks quiet and secluded. Well, since you're satisfied, we'll stay here for a few days before leaving. Fengzhou said with a smile as he looked at the cave residence in front of him. Okay. Xianyuan Mose smiled and led Fengzhou inside. CK and Mu Axian followed behind them. Master, I'll send 2 disciples to serve you later. If Master has any instructions, you can also instruct the odd job disciples to do it. Okay. Xianyuan Mose nodded and led Fengzhou inside. He said to the 2 people behind him, ask them to prepare some food. Also, during the time we're staying here, no one is allowed to enter this cave residence without our permission. Yes. The 2 of them replied and looked at each other. Mu Axian left first and found someone to arrange the chores. CK followed behind them. He sighed softly as he watched the 2 of them walk in hand. He really didn't expect this. One day, he would have 2 people so much younger than him as his masters. Moreover, their cultivation levels were higher than his. Chapter 2902. Yes, CK will take his leave. He bowed and left. Not long after he left, Wang Yan Qianhua also arrived. Xiao Jiu. Sister. Fengzhou heard her voice and walked out. When he saw her, he pulled her into the cave and smiled. Sister, I didn't have a chance to catch up with you earlier. Come, let's go. Xiao Jiu. When Xianyuan Mose heard these 3 words, he thought about how Wang Yan Qianhua had attacked Fengzhou's chest. He was speechless. They were both women. Why did they call each other so intimately? After a while, 2 red figures walked in. He stood up and said to Wang Yan Qianhua, please sit. When Wang Yan Qianhua saw him, she smiled and asked Fengzhou, Xiao Jiu, he's your man. You call me sister. Shouldn't he call me sister too? The corner of Xianyuan Mose's mouth twitched and his eyelids twitched. He said to the 2 of them, you 2 talk. I'm going to rest first. Fengzhou smiled and replied. She pulled Wang Yan Qianhua to sit down. Sister, don't tease him. Look at him. Is he the kind of person who would call someone sister? Oh right, sister, how did you get here? I was wondering why I didn't hear any news about you over there. My Wang Yan family has people over here, so I came over. She said casually, I've been under my master's tutelage for some time. However, I'm not as good as you guys. The moment I came over, I made it known to the 4 major immortal sects and got 2 divine realm disciples for no reason. When she spoke up to this point, her charming eyes curved slightly as she smiled and said, "Little Joe, all of you really picked up a treasure. Seek and Mushin are the strongest amongst all the Exalt realm experts here. Moreover, the forces and clans behind them aren't small at all. All of you have just arrived here, yet you already have 2 such disciples." Hearing that, Feng Jiu laughed and said, "We also bet on ourselves to win these 2 disciples. It was risky. Fortunately, we won. If we lost, we would have to worship them as our masters. I didn't expect your strength to improve so quickly. You're already at the peak of the divine realm. It's incredible." Wanyan Qianhua looked at her and sighed. She knew that when she first met her, she was not so strong. How long had it been since then? Her strength had increased to the peak of the divine realm. "Sister, Moze and I have just arrived here and we're not familiar with this place. Tell me about the situation here. We plan to stay here for 2 days before leaving. We're going to settle down outside," she said. "I see. Wait a moment." As she spoke, she rummaged through her space ring and finally took out a thick book and handed it to her. "I don't think I can explain it clearly. Take it and read it yourself. This is the distribution of this world, and it also records the various major powers. There's also a map of this world." She took it and smiled. "So there's a book. That's so convenient. This way, she would have everything she wanted to find." "There's more," Wanyan Qianhua said with a smile. She stood up and found a wider space. With a wave of her sleeve, a large pile of treasures appeared in the open space. "Look, you've earned so much treasure in just a short while." Chapter 2903. It's really quite a lot. These people are really generous. She laughed and looked towards Wanyan Qianhua, saying, "Sister, you can take some of these treasures." As soon as she finished speaking, she received a light knock on her head. Wanyan Qianhua rolled her eyes at her. "If your sister wants these things, there will naturally be people who will deliver them to her door. You should keep these things for yourself. Then wouldn't you have helped me for nothing?" Fengjiu felt a little apologetic. Why do we sisters have to say such things? All right, you should rest for today. I'll come over tomorrow to show you around. She patted Fengjiu's head and said, "Rest well." "All right, I'll send sister out." As she spoke, she sent her out before turning back. When she returned, she saw that Xianyuan Mose was already standing in front of the treasures and looking at them. She smiled and walked up to him, hugging his arm. "How is it? Was the money easy to come by?" Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose laughed softly. "When have you ever been sad about making money? A single pill of hers was already worth an astronomical amount. These things were easily obtainable to her, so they weren't rare items." "That's right, my sister gave me a book just now. Take it and read it first." She handed the book to him. After Xianyuan Mose received it, he asked, "When will they wake up in your space?" "Don't worry about that. Without me pricking their acupoints with silver needles, they won't wake up. However, I'll have to bring Hao out later to feed him something to prevent him from starving." "Grand Master." 2 voices came from outside. Hearing the voices outside, the 2 people in the cave looked at each other. Xianyuan Mose sat down at the table while Fengjiu walked out. When he came outside, he saw a male and female disciple dressed in green standing outside with things in their hands. Fengjiu glanced at them. The 2 of them were about 13 or 14 years old. The male disciple had a clever face while the female disciple had a beautiful face with baby fat. They looked very lovable and cute. "Grand Master." When the 2 saw Fengjiu come out, they hurriedly bowed respectfully and called out, "Shizhuan asked us to bring some food to Grand Master." Come in," she said as she turned around and walked inside. After the two little disciples entered, they saw a black-robed man sitting inside. They immediately bowed again. Disciple greets Grandmaster. Xianyuan Mose responded and glanced at them indifferently. After Fingzhou sat down, he saw the two of them standing to the side after placing the things on the table. He asked, "What are your names?" In reply to Grandmaster, Disciple Wu Yuan is CK's youngest disciple. Shizuan originally wanted to send a service disciple to serve you, but in the end, she chose a disciple from her own group to serve you. If Grandmaster needs anything, you can ask Wu Yuan to do it. The young man said quickly. Hearing this, the young girl beside him hurriedly said, Grandmaster, disciple is Mu Axian's youngest disciple. Keling Shizuan instructed me to take good care of the two grandmasters. If the two grandmasters need anything, you can ask this disciple to do it. Hearing this, Fengzhou nodded. You can go outside and wait. If we don't ask you to come in, you don't have to come in. Yes. The two of them replied. Then, they bowed and left the room. Chapter 2904. Let me try it. Fengzhou took a bite and nodded. Yes, it should be cooked by the old fire. I don't think it was cooked in the time it took us to get here and order them to prepare the food. I think it should be food prepared for some of the venerables in the sect. She smiled and looked at the food on the table. I didn't expect the venerables in the sect to eat so well. Do you think we should stay here for 2 more days? If you want to stay here for 2 more days, then stay for 2 more days before leaving, Xianyuan Mo said. Fengzhou smiled. After eating a bowl of bird's nest porridge and a bowl of stewed soup, she carried Hao, who was sleeping in the space. At the same time, Xianyuan Mose waved her hand and set up a soundproof barrier so that the sound inside could not travel outside. After Fengzhou undid Hao's sleeping acupoint, she played with him for a while before scooping a bowl of bird's nest porridge and feeding him. Looking at her fair and chubby son, Fengzhou could not help but smile. Will this kid become a little fatty in the future? He won't. When he's a little older, we can teach him how to cultivate. Xianyuan Mo said as he watched Fengzhou feed the child porridge. After eating, she held Hao's hand and learned to walk on the ground. Xianyuan Mo saw this and asked, Zhou, aren't you going to rest for a while? I'm not very tired. Even if I want to rest, I can't sleep. Why don't I play with Hao? Fengzhou said with a smile. She held Hao's hand and walked while saying, Come, take a step and see. Yes, that's it. Again. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo's also accompanied by the side. When she caught a glimpse of the small mountain of treasures from the corner of her eye, she said, Put those things away first. Oh, I almost forgot. Fengzhou said. She held the child's hand with one hand and waved her sleeve with the other to put all the treasures into the space. In the cave residence, Fengzhou held Hao's hand and learned to walk. Xianyuan Mo sat at the table and flipped through the book to understand the distribution of power on this continent. On the other side in the sect's meeting hall, all the venerables and important figures of the sect were present. Even CK and Mu Axian were sitting in the middle. Lingmu Venerable Snowy Jade and Venerable Snowy Jade sit. Immortal Monarch, why did you summon all of us to this meeting hall? Aren't you asking a question you already know the answer to? Immortal Lord Lingmu sneered and glanced at her. Venerable Snow Jade glared at him and said, You talk too much. All right, quiet down. The venerable immortal on the main seat raised his hand and glanced at the crowd. Finally, his gaze fell on CK and Mu Axian. He said, Today, I called all of you here to discuss Xianyuan Mo's and Fengzhou. Venerable immortal, hasn't this matter been settled? Is there still a need to discuss it? Venerable Snowy Jade said and looked at the venerable immortal on the main seat. That's right. CK and Mu Axian have both become their disciples. Is there still a need to discuss this matter? It was rare for Venerable Lingmu and Venerable Snowy Jade to agree. Chapter 2905. Venerable CK and Venerable Muaxayan, you two have to persuade your two masters to stay in the sect if possible. You should know that even being a consecrated elder is helpful to our sect. Moreover, the two of them have such strength and such a relationship with our immortal sect. For them, this is an extremely good thing. You must think of a way to make them stay. A sliver of hesitation appeared on Si Chu and Muaxayan's faces when they heard that. They glanced at each other before looking at Immortal Monarch and saying, Immortal Monarch, I'm afraid this isn't appropriate. The two masters aren't people who are willing to stay here for long. I heard that they'll be leaving in 2 days. Now that we've become their disciples, I'm afraid we can't stop them. As a result, I'm afraid we can't do anything about your orders. Hearing this, the Immortal Master frowned. Try your best. If they really don't want to stay, then forget it. But if they are willing to stay, even if it's just in name, our sect will give them a lot of benefits. You can analyze the pros and cons with them and let them decide for themselves. Yes. The two venerables responded and listened to him talk about other things and the competition of the 4 major immortal sects. The two listened absent-mindedly. They felt a little helpless. They had lost to Xianyuan Mose and Fingzhou. Now, from their point of view, one was their master, and the other was their sect. They were in a dilemma and had no choice. At this time, they were not in the mood to pay attention to other things. At this time, they were thinking that it would be best if the two masters stayed in the cave residence and left the sect in a few days. Perhaps once they left, the Immortal Master would not have any ideas about them and they would not be in a difficult position. The next day, Wanyan Qianhua came to Fingzhou's cave residence early in the morning. Before she got close, she shouted, Xiaozhou, are you up? Today, I'm going to take you around the sect. There are many pleasant sceneries here. Today, I'll take you to see them. When the two disciples guarding the door saw her, they hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Marshal and Wanyan. Wanyan Qianhua glanced at them. Oh. Did he send the two of you to serve them? Yes, Master ordered us to serve the 2 grandmasters, the two answered respectfully. Well, serve them well. It's your fortune to be able to serve them. Wanyan Qianhua said with a smile. Yes. The two answered. When they were about to report to the cave residence, they saw a red figure come out. Grand Master. The two hurriedly bowed. Feng Zhou came out of the cave residence. Today, she was still dressed in red and dressed as a man. She looked radiant. As soon as she saw Wanyan Qianhua, she smiled and said, Sister, you came quite early. Wanyan Qianhua glanced at her and asked with a smile, Why are you alone? Where's Xianyuan Mose? Isn't he coming with us? Fengzhou smiled and said, He said he's not going. He wants to read the book you gave him to familiarize himself with it. Chapter 2906. When she heard this, Fengzhou chuckled. Sure. Please lead the way, big sister. Let's take a look around. The 2 red figures were equally magnificent. When they walked together, they were pleasing to the eye. The disciples in the sect who saw the 2 of them stopped in their tracks and gasped in amazement. How beautiful! Uncle Master Wanyan's beauty is widely acknowledged by the 4 major immortal sects, but this Fengzhou who just popped out of nowhere and called Uncle Master Wanyan Big Sister is also breathtakingly beautiful. If he were a woman, how magnificent would he be? In the sect, only the supremacies could tell that Fengzhou was a woman. The disciples all thought that Fengzhou was a man, and a homosexual at that. When they arrived at the main peak, everyone who saw Fengzhou greeted her respectfully, Grandmaster. Especially when she saw that the disciples were all older than her, but after seeing her, they stopped and respectfully bowed. Then, she looked at Wanyan Qianhua at the side and chuckled. Big sister, you didn't come here just to see these disciples call me Grandmaster, did you? Heh heh heh, you're right. Look at them, they're all famous people. Now that Supremacy CK has acknowledged you as his master, they've become your grand disciples. Wanyan Qianhua covered his mouth and smiled charmingly. Little Joe, let me tell you something. Supremacy CK has a herb farm here. There are many good things in it. Fengzhou's eyes lit up at the mention of a herb farm. Really? Of course. Supremacy CK has the wood attribute, so he takes care of the herb farm when he's free. The spiritual herbs are all growing very well. As Wanyan Qianhua spoke, he led her to the other side. But he treasures it very much. He's always been very protective of it. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and narrowed his eyes. Then I'd like to see what kind of medicinal field it is. Speaking of which, we've already acknowledged them as our masters, but they haven't given us anything to show their filial piety. They haven't brought you anything. That's too bad. Wanyan Qianhua smiled charmingly and said, the two of them have a lot of treasures. When you go back, you must extort them well. Let's take a look at the herb farm first. If there's anything good, I'll just take it from there. As Fengzhou spoke, he followed her to a place. However, before they got close, two disciples stopped him. Uncle Master Wanyan Qianhua's herb farm if we enter. Hearing this, Wanyan Qianhua glanced at them flirtatiously. He smiled and asked, idle. Don't you know that your master has given you a grandmaster? We know. But what does that have to do with anything? The two disciples had been guarding the herb farm. They hadn't gone to watch the battle that their master had lost. They had only heard that their master had been defeated, so he had acknowledged the two winners as his masters. They seemed to be called Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou, two people from the lower realm. Because the one who's going in is your grandmaster. Even your master doesn't dare to stop him. Are you too tired of living? Do you dare to stop your grandmaster? Grandmaster. The two disciples couldn't help but look at the young man in red. They were instantly dumbfounded. They had heard that one of them was a handsome young man in red. Could that be the young man in front of them? Chapter 2907. Aren't you going to greet your grandmaster? Wanyan Qianhua's beautiful eyes swept over them. The two disciples' hearts trembled, and they hurriedly bowed. Be disciple greets grandmaster. Get up. Fengzhou said, and motioned, open the front courtyard door, I want to go in and take a look. Yes, yes. The two didn't dare to stop her, and could only go forward to open the door. After the two entered, one of them followed in, and the other quickly ran to find their grandmaster. Fengzhou entered and smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. She looked forward and saw that there was a small bamboo house on the side of the medicinal field. Walking further in, she saw a large medicinal field in front of her. Go take a look. I'll sit for a while. Wanyan Qianhua wasn't very interested in these spiritual herbs, so she went to sit on a wooden stump outside the bamboo house. With one hand on her cheek, she looked at the figure walking around in the medicinal field. The spiritual herbs aren't bad, but the age is a bit short. Fengzhou looked and said as she walked around the medicinal field in front of her. When she came to a medicinal field with a different color of soil, she stopped and looked. It's actually the deep well-red earth soil that has been baked. She was a bit surprised, and carefully looked at the spiritual herbs planted on the red earth soil. With this look, her eyes couldn't help but light up. Good stuff. There's even 1,000-year 7-leaf fire spirit flower, TSK, not simple, not simple. The disciple beside her was secretly surprised when he heard this. Did this grandmaster know about spiritual herbs? He could actually tell that the soil was baked deep well-red earth soil. He only knew about this soil from his grandmaster, otherwise, he wouldn't know what was so special about this red soil. According to his master, this red mud could make fire attribute spirit herbs grow faster and more luxuriant. It could also double the growth of fire attribute spirit herbs. Therefore, all the spirit herbs planted on this red mud field were fire attribute spirit herbs. Just as he was thinking, he saw the Grand Master take out a shovel from somewhere and dig out the 1000-year 7-leaf fire spirit flower. He was so scared that his eyes almost fell out. Grand Master, no, you can't. He cried out in surprise and hurriedly stepped forward. This is Master's treasure. Master treasures it very much. He doesn't even allow others to touch it. It's precisely because I know it's a treasure that I want it. If it's not a treasure, it's useless to me. Fengjiu said. She continued to carefully dig with her shovel. She wanted to move this spirit herb to her space and plant it there. Later on, she would find time to refine it into a pill. If she took this pill, the fire attribute in her body would definitely skyrocket. Martial ancestor, this is Master's lifeblood. The disciple said with a long face. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu turned around and scolded, nonsense. Your Shizhuan's family jewels are in his crotch. Puchi. On the other side, Wanyan Qianhua heard this and couldn't help but burst out laughing. The more she laughed, the louder she laughed. She laughed so hard that she looked extremely charming. When she finally stopped laughing, she pressed one hand against her chest and used the other to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes. She smiled and said, Xiaozhou, how can you be so bad? If Supremacy CK heard this, how would he dare to appear in front of you in the future? Fengjiu smiled and said, how am I bad? I'm clearly just telling the truth. It's this little disciple who's being naughty. He actually said that this spirit herb is his master's lifeblood. Isn't this nonsense? Chapter 2908. The naive disciple still didn't know that he had been tricked, and was still trying to emphasize it. At this time, Fengjiu had already dug up the spiritual medicine and sent it into the space. She then looked at the other 2 spiritual medicines. These 2 are also not bad. Grand Master. The disciple's face was already red with anxiety, like an ant on a hot pan, and didn't know what to do. Don't worry, I'll leave after digging up 2 more. Fengjiu didn't even raise her head as she spoke. She dug up another 2 spiritual medicines that were older, then patted her hands in satisfaction, brushed off the dirt on her robes, and stood up. Okay, I won't dig anymore, lest you cry later. Fengjiu said with a smile and patted the disciple's shoulder. Grand Master, the 3 oldest spiritual medicines were all dug up by you. If Shizhuan comes, how will I explain it to him? The disciple asked with red eyes and a face full of worry. Just tell him the truth. Don't worry, your Shizhuan won't vent his anger on you. She said with a smile, and walked towards Wanyan Qianhua. Sister, let's go look at other places. Okay, let's go look at other places. Wanyan Qianhua pursed her lips and said with a smile. She left the medicine field with her and went to another place. There are still many treasures in Honored CK's palace, do you want to go take a look? Wanyan Qianhua asked. No treasure can compare to these spiritual medicines. Fengjiu chuckled, and said, let's go to Muaxian's mountain peak to take a look. Does he have anything good there? Honored Muaxian. He doesn't have a medicine field, but he has 2 purple gold spirit deer. They're really beautiful. I'll take you to see them, those 2 deer are very intelligent, and he treasures them very much. Fengjiu was stunned, purple gold spirit deer. That can't be right. That's an extremely rare giant spirit deer. It said that it's a spirit beast that eats gold and jade. It's very precious. I've never seen a purple gold spirit deer in many forests. That is indeed the case. It is precisely because they are extremely rare that Reverend Muaxian treasures them so much. You don't know, but he spent a lot of effort for those two purple gold spirit deer. It is said that these two purple gold spirit deer have grown up with a lot of effort. Moreover, these two purple gold spirit deer only eat things like gold and jade. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed with excitement. Then I really want to see it. I've only seen this thing in the Book of 10,000 Beasts. I've never seen a living thing. Wanyan Qianhua pursed his lips and chuckled. However, even if you are interested, I don't think he is willing to give you these two purple gold spirit deer. Heh, seat, she smiled slyly. If it really was the purple gold spirit deer, she had to find a way to get it. Plus, she had a lot of treasures, so she didn't believe that he wouldn't trade. The two arrived at Muaxian's main peak. After entering the main peak, the disciples all respectfully greeted their ancestor. The two directly walked inside, and under Wanyan Qianhua's guidance, they arrived at the place where the two purple gold spirit deer were being raised. Look, this is it. Honored Muaxian set up a barrier here to prevent the two purple gold spirit deer from escaping. Wanyan Qianhua gestured for her to look forward. Chapter 2909. Inside the barrier, the two adult purple gold spirit deer sometimes walked on the ground, sometimes leaped into the air, galloping in the air. The adult purple gold spirit deer had strong bodies and slender legs. Their bodies seemed to contain power, and every leap was full of power. Their purple fur and golden markings set off each other, and the strange pattern markings and luxurious and dazzling colors made them look exceptionally beautiful, especially the two long and curved antlers on their heads. Purple and gold spots were produced along the antlers, emitting a dazzling light under the sun. They were so beautiful that they didn't seem to belong to this world. They're really beautiful and pleasing to the eye. They're really worthy of being rare beasts in the world. Fengjiu couldn't help but exclaim. She felt that the two purple gold spirit deer were incomparably beautiful. Yes. Otherwise, how could Venerable Muaxian treasure them so much? Wanyan Qianhua chuckled, looking at the two flying spirit deer, and said, moreover, these spirit deer can gallop in the air without wings. They're power type, and their fighting strength isn't weak. I'll go in and take a look. Fengjiu said, and flashed into the barrier, heading towards the two spirit deer. Wanyan Qianhua was startled, looking at Fengjiu who passed through the barrier. After a moment of surprise, she walked forward and said, "Can this barrier be entered?" Just as she was speaking, she saw that as soon as she touched the barrier, she was bounced back by an invisible force, and was forced to retreat a few meters. She was slightly startled, brushed her sleeves, and looked at the barrier in front of her with some doubts. Fengjiu could actually go in without the barrier being broken. At this time, Fengjiu, who was chasing the purple gold spirit deer in the barrier, had excitement in her eyes. For her, these were not only two spirit deer that were extremely ornamental and could fly, but also two precious elixirs. The antler powder of the purple gold spirit deer, as long as she scraped off a little bit, it would be a holy antidote. If it was used to make medicinal liquid or to refine pills, the detoxification effect would be increased several times. Taking advantage of the fact that Muaxian hadn't arrived yet, she first scraped off some and put them away. Later, she would think of a way to get these two spirit deer. While he was pondering, the red figure flashed and caught one of the spirit deer. He released his ancient pressure, and the purple gold spirit deer, which wanted to escape, immediately lay down obediently. Good girl. She stroked the purple gold spirit deer's head and said with a smile. At the same time, she took out a knife and a bottle from the space and carefully scraped off a layer of antler powder from the deer's antlers. The purple gold spirit deer looked at Fengjiu with its watery eyes, one purple and one gold. It had a pitiful look on its face as it let out soft cries. Fengjiu scraped a small bottle of powder from its antlers before patting its head. With a flip of her palm, a pill appeared between her fingers. This is your compensation. She chuckled and spread out the pill. The purple gold spirit deer smelled the pill and its eyes flashed with joy. It opened its mouth and stretched out its tongue, swallowing the pill in Fingzhou's palm, and then rubbed its head against her palm. Chapter 29:10. Fingzhou chuckled as she rubbed the purple gold spirit deer's head. She then took out a pill and spread it out in her palm. Eat. I have enough antler powder, you don't need to scrape it off. Ing. The purple gold spirit deer cried out in joy. It stuck out its tongue and swallowed the pill in Fingzhou's palm. Then it licked Fingzhou's palm, causing her to chuckle. It said that your speed is extremely fast. Let's test your speed. Come and chase me. Let's see how fast you are. She said warmly as she patted the two spirit deer's head. Do you understand? Ing. The two purple gold spirit deer nodded and stood up. When they stood up, they were taller than Fingzhou by more than half. Fingzhou turned around and flew into the air. Come quickly. As soon as her voice fell, the two purple gold spirit deer chased after her. Wanyan Qianhua, who was outside the barrier, couldn't help but open her beautiful eyes wide in astonishment. Two purple gold spirit deer that didn't like strangers were actually chasing her. What on earth had she done? Why were these two spirit deer so obedient to her? On the other side, CK, who heard a disciple say that Fingzhou went to the medicine field, quickly rushed to the medicine field. However, when he arrived, he saw another disciple squatting in the medicine field. He looked around and didn't see Fingzhou's figure, so he asked, "Didn't you say that your martial ancestor came? Why didn't I see?" Hiss. Before he finished speaking, his gaze fell on the medicine field in front of him. He sucked in a breath of cold air and suddenly strode forward. Where is my 1,000-year-old 7-leaf fire spirit flower? Why is there only one pit left? Who is so bold? Who dares to steal my 1,000-year-old spirit herb? The disciple was so scared that his face turned white. He stammered, Master, it's the martial ancestor. It's the martial ancestor who dug it. Also, the two over here. He pointed to the side and couldn't continue. When he heard this and saw the other two pits, he almost fainted from anger. The 3 stalks of the oldest spirit herbs were gone just like that. No. I'm going to get it back. He turned around and walked out. However, before he left the herb field, he bumped into Venerable Muaxayan, who was walking in from outside. Venerable Muaxayan saw that he was so angry that his face turned red as if he was going to kill someone. He asked in surprise, "What's wrong? What happened?" "Our good master. You actually dug out my 3 stalks of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs." CK took a deep breath. She felt like the anger in her heart was about to explode, but she couldn't find an outlet. Hearing this, Muaxayan was stunned. "Your 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs? Ha ha ha. You deserve to be dug up. Who asked you to plant such precious spirit herbs in this medicinal field and even let people come and go as they please? If I had known, I would have set up a barrier. No. I'm going to get it back. I was going to ask Yao Feng to help me refine those 3 spirit herbs into pills. Now that she has taken them, CK became more and more anxious as he spoke. Muaxayan, who was watching from the side, hurriedly comforted him. Okay, don't worry. She's not an alchemist, so it's useless even if she took them. She probably just wants to take something from us. He smiled and said, "Later, I'll accompany you to get them back from Master." Chapter 29:11. But she had planted the 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs among the other spiritual herbs, so how did she recognize the 3 spiritual herbs? CK was puzzled. At this moment, a disciple ran in, panting. Seeing that it was not a disciple from his peak, he asked, "Whose disciple are you? What are you doing here?" Venerable Muaxian looked back and asked in surprise, "Why are you here?" "Your disciple." CK looked at Muaxian and asked. Muaxian smiled and said, "Yes, he's a disciple in charge of guarding the purple gold spirit deer." As he spoke, the smile on his face froze. He quickly grabbed the disciple's collar and asked anxiously, "Don't tell me that your grandmaster went to the main peak." "Yes, yes." The disciple panted and nodded quickly. Seeing CK's shocked face, he quickly said, "Master, Grandmaster went to the purple gold spirit deer." Phew. Muaxian took a deep breath and let go of the disciple's collar. He waved his hand as if to comfort himself and said, "It's okay, it's okay. I don't plant any spiritual herbs on my peak. Even if there are precious things, I've set up barriers and formations. She can't go in, she can't go in." Hearing this, the disciple opened his mouth and looked at CK in front of him. In the end, he braced himself and said, "Master, then Grandmaster went in. Where did she go?" Muaxian glanced at him and asked. "She went into the barrier where the purple gold spirit deer were kept." The disciple said and carefully took a step back. "She broke my barrier." Muaxian glared and asked angrily in a low voice. No, Grandmaster didn't break the barrier. She just walked in." Then the two purple gold spirit deer followed behind her and played with her. They were very close to Grandmaster. The disciple whispered and stole a glance at his master. Seeing that his master didn't believe him, he added, "It's true. If you don't believe me, Master, go back and take a look." CK was also startled. He knew about the purple gold spirit deer. It wasn't close to strangers. How could it be with their master? This shouldn't be the case. Immediately, he said to Muaxian, "Let's go and take a look. Speaking of which, Master is very strange. If you're late, your two purple gold spirit deer might be taken away by her." Hearing this, Muaxian immediately became anxious. He took to his heels and rushed out while roaring, "Those are the two treasures that I've been feeding Jean you since she was young. Whoever dares to snatch them from me, I'll fight them." When CK saw this, she hurriedly chased after her. The two of them were running like the wind, and Muaxian was in a hurry. It didn't take long for the news to spread throughout the entire sect. It was said that the master of CK and Muaxian had dug out CK's 3,000-year-old elixirs and then went to Muaxian's purple gold spirit deer. It seemed that she had designs on the purple gold spirit deer. For a time, the entire immortal sect was talking about this. There were even some curious disciples who followed behind the two venerables, planning to watch the show. When Muaxian arrived at the purple gold spirit deer's location like the wind, she saw dozens of disciples surrounding it. She immediately shouted angrily, "What are you all doing here? Hurry up and disperse." As soon as she shouted, the disciples quickly dispersed and made a path for her. Chapter 29:12. Inside the barrier, Fengzhou, dressed in red, was about to leave, but the two purple gold spirit deer bit her robe and pulled her back, not letting her go. Seeing this scene, he only felt that his previous cognition had been overturned. God knows how many gold jades and treasures he had fed these two purple gold spirit deer before they let him touch them. What was going on now? His two treasures were unwilling to let Fengzhou leave. Were they crazy? Or did they take the wrong medicine? "Don't bite. It'll be troublesome if you tear my robe," Fengzhou said helplessly. She turned around and patted the heads of the two spirit deer, saying, "Be good, let go, let go." Unexpectedly, the two purple gold spirit deer bit the corner of her robe tightly and shook their heads, indicating that they didn't want her to leave. Seeing this, Fengzhou helplessly looked outside the barrier and saw Muaxian standing there in a daze with her eyes almost popping out. She shouted, "Muaxian, come here." Muaxian stepped forward in a daze and asked, What's going on?" Why did my purple gold spirit dear? Fengjiu spread out her hands and said innocently, I don't know. They seemed to like me when I came in. As you can see, they don't let me go. I'm also helpless. She turned her eyes slightly and said with a smile, Muaxayan, it must be very difficult for you to raise these two spirit deer, right? Hearing this, Muaxayan shivered and asked defensively, Master, what do you want to do? I thought that if it's difficult for you to raise these two spirit deer, I can help. She said with a smile. Master, you don't have to worry. I'm used to raising them. I don't think it's difficult to raise them. He quickly said. I see. Okay then. Fengjiu shrugged and said, Can you tell them not to bite the corner of my robe now? Hearing this, Venerable Muaxayan stepped forward, took out a handful of gold coins, and placed them in his palm. Come, let's eat. However, the two purple gold spirit deer didn't even look at him and moved to the side as if they were avoiding him. Muaxayan's mouth twitched and the veins on his forehead popped out. Seeing this, Fengjiu chuckled and said to the two spirit deer, Let go, I'll come back tomorrow. Hearing this, the two purple gold spirit deer released their jaws and looked at Fengjiu. Their mouths were still crying as if they were saying that they must come tomorrow. CK walked over and looked at Fengjiu, who was standing inside the barrier, and asked, Master, can you return the 3,000-year-old herbs in my medicine field to me? Upon hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at CK and asked with a smile, Are you an alchemist? No. CK said, But I want to ask Yao Feng to refine the 3 herbs into pills for me. Is it the Scarlet Cloud pill? Fengjiu asked. CK was startled and asked, Master, you know. Fengjiu smiled and said, The Scarlet Cloud pill is an 8th grade pill. It's refined with the help of 108 different herbs. Among them, 10 of the main herbs must be at least 1,000 years old. She paused and turned her eyes, slowly saying, A Scarlet Cloud pill can double the size and toughness of an enlightened master's meridians. It can also help an enlightened master break through to the perfection realm of the enlightened master and improve one's strength. Chapter 29:13. Pill venerates badge. He cried out in surprise, his eyes widening as he stared at the badge on Fengjiu's chest in disbelief. Her strength was already so abnormal, but other than that, she was also a pill venerate. Fengjiu thought for a moment, then said, I've been busy recently, so I didn't go to the alchemy guild for the assessment. I think that with my current alchemy skills, I should have reached the level of a pill deity. Hearing this, CK's entire body trembled with excitement. He felt his blood rush to his head. Pill deity. Master has reached the level of a pill deity. Then wouldn't she be able to refine pills that ordinary alchemists couldn't? Thinking of this, he became excited. Master, are those 3 stalks of spirit medicine enough? If not, I'll go pick some more for Master. I also have 1,000-year snow lingji that I've treasured for a long time. Master, I'll bring it to you. CK's mind was blank, he probably didn't know what to say anymore. He only knew that his master was a powerful alchemist, and she could refine pills that other alchemists couldn't. At that moment, he only wanted to give her his treasured spiritual herbs to please her. In the future, he could ask her to refine pills that could help them advance or even save their lives. Seeing CK run away, Muaxayan was also stunned. He didn't react for a long time. What's going on? He stared at the badge on Fengjiu's chest and asked hesitantly, Master, are you really a pill venerate alchemist? Yes. Fengjiu nodded, didn't you see it? This badge can't be fake. Muaxayan sucked in a breath, then asked, But, aren't you a profound and spiritual dual cultivator? How are you a pill venerate alchemist? And a pill venerate alchemist? Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled, Your master is very capable, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It is your fortune to be able to acknowledge me as your master. Mu Axian was stunned. Looking at the smiling Fingzhou, he suddenly felt that this master was really abnormal. Maybe it was really as she said, she had a lot of abilities. Maybe it was really their fortune to have such a powerful master. Thinking of CK's actions just now, Mu Axian hesitated and asked, "Master, do you like my 2 purple gold spirit deer?" Those 2 little things are not bad. They are indeed rare treasures. Fengzhou nodded and looked back at the 2 purple gold spirit deer. Hearing this, Venerable Mu Axian took a deep breath and said, "Since Master has taken a fancy to them, I will give these 2 purple gold spirit deer to Master. Take it as my filial piety." As he spoke, he waved his hand to remove the boundary. The 2 purple gold spirit deer quickly ran out and jumped to Fengzhou's side. Seeing this, Mu Axian's mouth twitched. In any case, he had raised them for so many years. How could they be subdued by a person he had only met once? How could he not feel depressed? "Although I am your master, it is somewhat unreasonable to take away your 2 treasures," Fengzhou said and glanced at the 2 purple gold spirit deer. Mu Axian smiled bitterly. "It is because these 2 spirit deer are rare treasures that disciple can give them to Master. Master, please accept them. It is also a small token of my appreciation." Chapter 29:14. Of course. Mu Axian nodded. Although it pained him, he didn't show it on his face. He had raised those 2 spirit deer for so long, and had fed them so much gold and jade to grow into what they were today. But now, the 2 spirit deer were staring at him, their master, and didn't even look at him, the person who had raised them. Their hearts were no longer with him, so what was the point of keeping them? It was better to give them away as a favor. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and looked at him, saying, "In that case, I'll accept it." As she spoke, she moved her hand and a bottle of pills appeared in her palm. "This pill is for you. Although it's not as amazing as the Scarlet Cloud pill, it can help you break through your current threshold," Fengzhou said and looked at Wanyan Qianhua. "Sister, let's go back." "Okay." Wanyan Qianhua walked forward and looked at the 2 purple gold spirit deer beside her with some surprise. He didn't expect that she would obtain so many treasures just by coming out for a walk. Thus, Wanyan Qianhua flew on the white crane, Fengzhou sat on one of the spirit deer, and the other spirit deer stepped into the air beside them and went back to the cave residence. At that moment, Mu Axian still hadn't recovered from his shock. He stared blankly at the medicinal pill in his hand. He suddenly turned around and took it out to take a look. When he did, his hand trembled and he almost dropped the medicinal pill on the ground. A 7th level top-grade pill. He exclaimed and hurriedly put the pill back into the bottle and went back to the cave residence. He planned to try this pill and see if it could really help him break through his current threshold, as she said. After they left, the surrounding disciples also dispersed. They were all discussing what had just happened. Therefore, it didn't take long for the entire sect to know that the master of CK and Mu Axian was not only a powerful person, but also a pill venerable level alchemist. She casually gave the extremely precious 7th grade elixir to Venerable Mu Axian. After receiving the elixir, Mu Axian quickly returned to her cave residence. Once the news spread, it caused a great commotion in the sect. When the immortal monarch of the immortal sect was about to call Mu Axian to ask about it, he was informed that Venerable Mu Axian had already gone into seclusion. Therefore, the immortal monarch summoned a few alchemists from the pill refining mountain. The few alchemists who heard the news were also surprised. Pill venerable? That was impossible, right? Fengzhou was so young, how could he be a mystic spirit cultivator and a pill venerable level pill master? However, at that time, it was said that many disciples had seen her take out a pill venerable's badge and wear it on her chest. Thus, they were really quite curious about this matter. If she really was a pill venerable, then they wanted to discuss the Tao of pill refinement with her. On the other side, CK, who had heard the news, brought the 1,000-year-old elixir that he had treasured for many years to Fingzhou's cave residence and asked for an audience. Master, disciple CK requests an audience. In the past, he wouldn't have called himself a disciple. However, things were different now. He looked at the cave residents eagerly and tried his best to calm himself down. Sister, sit down and have a cup of tea first, Fingzhou said from inside the cave residence. He let Wanyan Qianhua have a cup of tea first, then stood up and walked out. Chapter 29:15. Master. CK hurriedly bowed when he saw her and presented the box to her with both hands. Master, this is a 1,000-year-old snow Ganoderma that I've collected for many years. Please accept it. Fingzhou didn't accept it. Instead, she clasped her hands behind her back and looked at him. Take this snow Ganoderma back. I dug up 3 of your 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs. When the time comes and the scarlet cloud pill is refined, I'll give one to you. Upon hearing this, CK's heart skipped a beat. He looked at her. Master. The scarlet cloud pill required more than just a few spiritual herbs. He had only dug up 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs, yet he was able to get one. This bottle can be considered as a gift for you to become my disciple. Fingzhou turned her palm and a bottle of pills appeared in her hand. These aren't pills for advancement, but they can save your life. There are 3 pills in here. If you take them in a dangerous situation, they can save your life. Thank you, Master. CK excitedly reached out and carefully accepted the bottle. He looked at the box in his hand and said, Master, please accept this 1,000-year-old snow Ganoderma. Otherwise, I'll feel guilty and uneasy. He once again presented the snow Ganoderma to her. Fingzhou was silent for a moment before reaching out to accept it. Since that's the case, I'll accept it. Thank you, Master. CK was delighted. He smiled and asked, Master, are you really not going to stay in the immortal sect for long? Yes, we plan to leave in 2 days. Fingzhou replied. Which town would you like to go to? If there's no specific place, I'm willing to arrange it for you. Fingzhou wanted to refuse, but then she remembered that her sister had said that CK and Mu Axian had powerful families behind them. Thus, she said, the nearest town to the immortal sect is Four Corner City. It said that it's the most prosperous town in the area. If there's anyone familiar with the area, please have someone find us a residence there. Upon hearing this, CK respectfully replied, Don't worry, Master. I'll take care of this. He bowed and retreated. Immediately, he sent a disciple to Four Corner City. Back inside, Fingzhou told Xianyuan Mose and Wanyan Qianhua about Quebec. Finally, she said, since he asked that question, I'll let him make the arrangements. Letting him make the arrangements will save us a lot of trouble. Venerable CK's family branch is in Four Corner City. He only needs to give an order. In the meantime, you can stay here at ease. It won't be too late to leave after he has made the arrangements, Wanyan Qianhua said with a smile and took a sip of tea to moisten his throat. Yes. Yes, Fengzhou replied. Looking at Xianyuan Mose, he asked, Sister, did you see a man called Mo Chen come here before us? Mo Chen had come here before them. But they'd been here for a day or two, and hadn't heard anything about him. Xianyuan asked about this just now. I've never seen that man called Mo Chen before, but I heard that someone came down from the immortal stairs. But no one knows where that person went. Wanyan Qianhua said. Fengzhou was surprised. Don't all people who come down from the immortal stairs come to this sect? Chapter 29:16. It's also possible that he has something to do. When he's done, he'll probably come find us, Xianyuan Mo said, then took a sip of tea. He knows that we'll come. Fengzhou nodded, maybe. But he was worried about Mo Chen when he didn't see him. I should go back. When you're ready to leave, I'll send you into the city. Wanyan Qianhua said, standing up. Fengjiu also stood up and sent her out before returning. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two spirit deer and asked, "What's the use of these two spirit deer?" Fengjiu smiled, "I'm going to let them pull the carriage. We'll find some time to build a carriage and let these two purple gold spirit deer pull it. When we go out, we'll be able to sit in the carriage." She smiled and said, "Moreover, these purple gold spirit deer are treasures. The antlers are precious antidotes. This time, we've really profited. You've gotten these, but you still have to give them some pills, right? You can't say that. After all, they're our disciples. For us, pills are easy to get. It's worth it to give them these things as a favor." Fengjiu smiled and said, "Look, CK also brought the 1,000-year snow Ganoderma." With one hand supporting her cheek, she took out the snow Ganoderma with the other and looked at it. She said, "I'll help him refine this into a pill later." She then asked, "Oh right, have you finished reading that book?" "I haven't read a third of it," Xianyuan Mo said, "but I've roughly figured it out." He took out a map and said to her, "Look, it's like this. In the cave." Xianyuan Mo explained the distribution of the continent to her in detail, as well as some of the powers and sections. As for CK, she instructed her disciples to go down the mountain, and then she was summoned by the immortal master. In Venerable Muaxayan's cave residence, he was cultivating in seclusion after taking the pill. The next day, he finally broke through the threshold that he had been unable to cross. He could not help but be overjoyed. As peak heavenly god-level powerhouses, it was extremely difficult for them to even take a small step forward. Now, with just a single pill, he had actually crossed the threshold of cultivation and made a small breakthrough. Even if it was only a small breakthrough, according to his usual cultivation speed, this small breakthrough would take at least 10 years. Now, it actually only took him a day and a night. How could he not be overjoyed? He walked out of the immortal's cave feeling refreshed. Just as he was about to tell his master about the effects of the pill he had taken, he saw a disciple in front of him quickly walking over. "Venerable Muaxayan, the immortal master ordered me to wait here. Once you come out of seclusion, I'm to invite the immortal master over. He has something to ask you," the disciple said respectfully. The disciple said respectfully as he secretly sized up Venerable Muaxayan. He wanted to see if there was any difference after Venerable Muaxayan had consumed the elixir. However, he was too weak to see the difference. "The immortal master is looking for me." Venerable Muaxayan was stunned for a moment. He thought for a moment and realized what the immortal master wanted, so he said, "All right, I'll go over now." With that, he flicked his sleeves, gathered his chi, and flew on his sword to the main peak where the immortal master was. Chapter 29:17. I heard that Fengjiu gave you an elixir. Is it really that powerful? Venerable Lingmu looked at Muaxayan and clicked his tongue in wonder. I did make a small breakthrough, Venerable Muaxayan said with a smile, then asked, "Why are you here? Did the immortal call you here too?" Venerable Lingmu stared at him, then sat down and said, "I heard that you came out of seclusion, so I came to take a look. You've only been in seclusion for a day and a night, but you actually made a breakthrough. That's incredible." Yes. According to the cultivation speed of the past, taking this small step would take about 10 years or so. I have to say, Honored Master is indeed worthy of being a senior alchemist. Just a pill he casually took out is already so powerful, Yang Kai said sincerely, his heart filled with admiration. Yes, your two masters haven't come out since they entered the cave. Yesterday, the immortals sent people to invite them, but they failed. It's not easy to see them. Venerable Lingmu looked at him and said, "You and CK are lucky to have Fengjiu as your master. You'll benefit a lot in the future." Hearing this, Venerable Muaxayan laughed. "We didn't think about that at first. We were just willing to admit defeat. Master is an alchemy venerable. We didn't expect him to be in alchemy venerable. That's why you've profited. I heard from my Qianhua that Fingzhou is an incredible person. An enchanting and beautiful figure walked out. The two looked over and saw Venerable Snow Jade. They asked, "Is there something else we don't know?" Venerable Snow Jade knows. Another voice rang out. The few of them looked over and saw the immortal monarch and a few old men walking out together. Behind them, there were two alchemists. "Greetings, immortal master," and several elders. The three people bowed respectfully. "Sit down." The immortal master waved his hand and then looked at Venerable Snow Jade, saying, "Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou come from the lower realm. It's difficult for us to find out about the lower realm, so we don't know what kind of people they are. Since your disciple knows, did you ask for details?" Venerable Snow Jade smiled. "Immortal master, how can I ask for details? Qianhua is Fengzhou's sworn sister. She is also on Fengzhou's side. Moreover, you know what kind of person Qianhua is. If she doesn't want to say anything, she won't say anything even if I break my mouth." She smiled. "However, I heard her say that Fengzhou is not only excellent in alchemy, but his medical skills are even more outstanding." Hearing this, everyone was slightly surprised, especially Venerable Muaxayan, who found it hard to believe. He knew how powerful his master's medicinal pills were. If the medicinal effects of the medicinal pills were like this, then his medical skills must be extraordinary as well. When the immortal master heard this, his heart moved slightly. He was still thinking that if he could, he would recruit Fingzhou and Xianyuanmos and make them a part of their immortal sect. In this way, if the immortal sect was in danger in the future, it would be much easier to ask them to help. The elders were silent. No one knew what they were thinking. The two alchemy masters behind them looked at each other, then looked at Venerable Muaxayan and asked, "Venerable Muaxayan, do you still have that pill?" Chapter 29:18. Muaxayan glanced at them and said, "Immortal monarch, if there's nothing else, I'll go to my master's place first." Hearing this, the immortal monarch took a deep breath and said, "Go." Muaxayan will take his leave. After bowing, he nodded to everyone and left first. Watching him leave, the two alchemists said, "Immortal monarch, Venerable Muaxayan's strength has indeed broken through the threshold. With his strength at the peak of the divine realm, it's not easy for him to break through to the peak of divine realm. Even a small step will take him 10 years. Now, because of a pill, it only took him 1 day and 1 night to shorten his cultivation time by 10 years. Fengzhou's alchemy skills are indeed extraordinary." "That's true." The immortal monarch nodded and sighed. "It's a pity that the two of them are unwilling to become our sect's consecrators. The two of them were powerful, and one of them was a venerable alchemist. The other alchemists had no fate with their sect. It could only be said that they had missed the opportunity." Ling Mu and Venerable Snow Jade looked at each other and then said, "Immortal monarch, we still have something to deal with in the peak, so we'll take our leave first." With that, they also turned and left. Seeing this, the immortal monarch didn't say anything. He just waved his hand and said to the others, "You can go back too." With that, he also left with his hands behind his back. It's reasonable to say that even if Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou are unwilling to be our sect's consecrators, it's not a big deal. But why do I feel that the immortal monarch seems to be very worried? One of the alchemists looked at the elders and asked. "And, I can feel it too." Another alchemist nodded. Don't think too much. The immortal monarch just wants our sect to have more outstanding talents." One of the elders said with a smile and said to the two alchemists, "You two can go back first. Venerable Muaxayan is now going to his master's place. If you two go with him now, maybe you can ask Fengzhou about the pill." Hearing this, the two alchemists' eyes lit up and they hurriedly said, "Then we'll go first." With that, they hurriedly left. After they left, the elders looked at each other and sighed softly. even the two alchemists who are obsessed with pills can see it. The other person said, actually, the two of them took in CK and Muaxayan as disciples. This way, it doesn't mean that it has nothing to do with our immortal sect. I think that if we really need help in the future, we should ask them for help. If we want them to help us in the future, we have to let them feel the goodwill of our sect. However, the Venerables made things difficult for them, and the immortal monarch didn't stop them. I'm afraid. Hearing this, the others frowned and couldn't help but sigh softly. Maybe the immortal monarch put his hopes on CK and Muaxayan because of this. After saying this, they looked at each other speechlessly. In the end, they shook their heads and left together. Chapter 29:19. Oh. You've come out. CK looked at him and scanned his body. Sensing the surging aura on his body, he couldn't help but praise, Master's pills are truly divine. It's only been a day and a night, but your aura has changed. Haha, that's true. That's why I wanted to tell Master about it as soon as I came out, but I didn't expect to be summoned by the immortal Master's men as soon as I left the cave. Muaxayan stopped and looked at CK. I think the immortal Master must be regretting it now. Both Masters have their own plans. Let's not talk about it, CK said with a wave of his hand. Hearing this, Muaxayan asked, did Master give you any medicinal pills? CK, who was about to step forward, paused and looked at him with a smile. Yes. Really? What kind of pills are they? Muaxayan was slightly surprised and immediately asked. He wanted to know the effects of the pills. Master gave me 3 life-saving pills. She said that they might give me a chance of survival in times of crisis, CK said. His heart trembled as he thought of the 3 pills in the bottle. I wonder how effective those 3 pills are. Now that he had the 3 pills, he really wanted to take them out and take a look. However, when he thought about how they were life-saving pills, he didn't dare to waste them. 3 pills. Muaxayan was stunned. His voice rose slightly as he stared at CK. I only have 1 pill, but you have 3. What grade are they? Take them out and let me see. At this moment, he didn't look like a venerable at all. CK glanced at him and coughed lightly. It's my business that Master gave me 3 pills. Don't stare at me like you've been starving for a long time. No matter how much you stare, I won't give you one. Muaxayan's mouth twitched. He seemed to realize that he had lost his composure. He coughed lightly and said, why would I think that? I just want to see what kind of pills Master gave you. It's useless to look at other people's things, CK said casually as he walked forward. Muaxayan was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and laughed. That's right. It's useless to look at other people's things. Even if he looked at them, they wouldn't belong to him. Why would he look at them? The two walked towards the cave residence. Muaxayan glanced at him and asked, I'm here to tell Master about the effects of the pills. What are you here for? Oh. You don't know. Master asked me to find a residence for them in Four Corner City. Now that the matter has been settled, I naturally came to inform Master. Master and they're going to stay in Four City. Isn't that very close to us? Muaxayan was delighted. Four City was the closest and most prosperous city to their sect. If they stayed there, it would be easy for them to find their 2 masters in the future. I've already chosen a place. It's up to the 2 masters to see if they're satisfied, CK said as they arrived in front of the cave residence and let the 2 disciples who were guarding it pass the message. Seeing this, Muaxayan also waited outside. Not long after, a red figure walked out of the cave residence. When the 2 saw her, they immediately cupped their hands and bowed. Disciples greet Master.